and welcome to Veterinary Compassion Project. I am Dr. Erin Holder, and today I'm here with Josh Vaisman of Flourish Veterinary Consulting. Josh believes all veterinary professionals deserve to be fulfilled and energized in their work each and every day. First of all, let me stop and say thank you so much for that. Through his company, Flourish Veterinary Consulting, he combines more than 25 years of veterinary experience, a master's in applied positive psychology and coaching psychology, education in positive leadership and positive organizational scholarship, and a passion for guiding leaders to cultivate workplaces in which people thrive. He's also the author of the book Lead to Thrive: The Science of Crafting a Positive Veterinary Culture. Josh has taught the art of practicing positive leadership at hundreds of organizations, conferences, and events. To further his mission of empowering veterinary leaders with practical guidance, in 2024, he began pursuing graduate education in conflict management and applied positive communication at the University of Arkansas, Little Rock. When he's not cultivating ways to elevate the veterinary community, Mr. Weissman spends his time with his wife, Greta, and their many creatures in Firestone, Colorado. To fill his bucket, he's a soccer player, reef keeper, cookie eating, and beekeeper. Oh, we're going to have to circle back to those at the very end.
Sure.
That's great. Oh, well, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here on the podcast today. And I've been
Thanks for having
secretly
me.
following your website for quite some time as I crafted Veterinary Compassion Project. And
Mm.
so my very first question to you is, why are you doing what you're doing? Tell us about you and tell us about your amazing company.
Sure. I'll try and do that as quickly as I possibly can. Honestly, for a variety of reasons, for a lot of personal experiences that I've had and things that I've seen in the profession throughout, the last 25 plus years now. Um, I came across after going through my own experience with pretty like dark, deep, epic level burnout. I came across the science of positive psychology, and I felt like I had stumbled onto something that's really been missing from our profession. Um, I really do believe that people deserve to be fulfilled in their work. And if ever there's a profession that should contribute to that experience, professional fulfillment and joy and the experience of thriving, it's this one. And yet, for so many of us, so often it doesn't. The things that we hear about, certainly, which are problematic, and the stuff that I'm so grateful that you're trying to support, Dr. Holder, are, things like burnout and compassion fatigue and psychological distress and depressive symptoms and worse. But even if we eliminate all those things, that doesn't necessarily create a profession of thriving. That just creates a profession free of suffering. And I think there's more
Surviving.
to, yeah, exactly. I think there's more. I think there's more. I don't want to see people just survive work, hoping that at the other side of it is good stuff. And if we're going to commit 30 to 40% of our adult lives to something, it should be part of the good stuff. And so I felt like I'd stumbled on science that talked about that. And that really tickled both parts of, my brain, the sort of heart-centered part of the brain and the scientific part of the brain. So yeah, I got really jazzed about, okay, how can we take that science? How can we translate it and make it usable in veterinary spaces?
Yes, please, more. That sounds amazing because you just said something that triggered me back to feeling like that initial super excitement of getting into vet school. Like, I'll never
Mm, hmm.
forget, I'm
Hmm.
gonna age myself, of course, but I got the certified letter, right? Not the email, but getting that certified letter and feeling like
Yeah.
there's no way that I'm not going to not only do great in this profession, but love every
Hmm.
moment of it and never get exhausted by it.
Hmm.
And it's a real rude awakening to wake up and be like, I'm gonna now walk away from this profession and not come
Yeah.
back to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I genuinely am so excited about what your company offers. So tell me just
Mm.
a little bit about this scientific evidence that you found. Share that with our
Sure.
audience.
Yeah, sure. So I think that we can sort of look at things. I'll use the metaphor of like I don't know, a 10-year-old lab that walks through the door. One way that we can look at a 10-year-old lab is, okay, what are the things that we need to diagnose that are problematic with this, senior animal? And then how do we alleviate those things? I don't know, maybe there's a little bit of, high alk phos or something like that, right? So there's liver issues, and maybe there's some supplements or things that we can do, dietary changes. Maybe this dog is a little bit overweight, and so we can put them on a diet. Maybe this dog has some arthritic issues, things like that, right? So one way that we can look at that animal is what are the problems here and how do we eliminate those issues? Another way that we can look at that animal is what are the things that are going to maximize the quality of life that this particular animal can have? Like, how do we ensure that this particular pet, given whatever situation they're in, given their liver function and their age and their weight and their, what are things that are going to make this dog feel like it is living its best life? That's what the science of applied positive psychology is really about. It's looking at the nutrients through this scientific method. So trying to study what are the antecedents to well-being, to doing well, to living life to its fullest, to feeling like this is a life worth living. This, I'm maximizing my potential. I'm living out my strengths. I'm finding meaning and purpose in my life, those things, despite whatever circumstances I'm in. That's the science we're talking about. Another metaphor that I often use with folks is thinking of it like a garden. Do you keep a garden, Erin?
I do.
You do, yeah. So you know that like a
Yes.
part of gardening is weed management, right? Like if
Yes.
you have to deal with the weeds, you got to pull some of those noxious things out and make sure that they're not overtaking the plants that you're trying to grow in the garden, right? What if all you ever did was weed management? What if every moment that you spent in that garden was just desperately trying to eliminate all the weeds?
Wait a second. Hold on. You're really hitting a nerve. I feel like I'm right back at practicing my giant practice where all I'm
Yeah.
doing is weeding
Yes.
every moment
Yes.
of every
Yes.
day.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So this is similar. So this is why I asked that question. Like, what if that was literally all you did? I could see a physical change in you as I started to say that, and you were
Yes.
starting to recalling that, right? Like,
Yes.
yeah, you had this look of like frustration and I almost want to say disgust on you,
Yes.
like thinking back to those times. It was awful. It's awful. Weed management is not a way to spend a life.
Yes.
It's also not possible to eliminate all the weeds. Anybody
Yes.
who keeps a garden knows you can't do it. I mean, when you were in practice, like they just kept popping up. They're always there. That's the lived experience of being a human being. There's no such thing as a stress-free life. There's no such thing as a garden absent weeds. It doesn't mean you stop trying to eliminate weeds. You have to manage them. Like we
Yes.
don't we don't say, okay, well, you know what? Life's going to be stressful, so I'm forget about stress management. No, we don't do that. What I'm saying is that so often we look at well being through the perspective only of weed management. If I can just get rid of all the weeds, then I'll feel good. But the problem is first of all, you can't. But even if you could get rid of every single weed in your garden, then what's left? An empty patch of dirt. You haven't grown anything. Positive psychology says, okay, listen, there is a lot of science on the weed management side. There's a lot of work being done on what it means to minimize, mitigate, prevent, reduce all these kinds of things, all the weeds, all the stressors, all the difficult things that bring us down in life. A lot of science being applied there. That's great. Let's look at the science of nutrients. Let's look at the science of how much sun and when. Let's look at the science of when to water and how much water to apply. What nitrates and phosphates and all those kinds of things that, nitrogen or whatever that has to go into, what are those things? Where do they come from? How do we apply them at the right time, at the right dose? That's what I'm really interested in. I want to help organizations. It's not that I'm ignoring the stress side of things. I'm not, but I want to help organizations apply the nutrients that actually, as it turns out, if you have a nutrient rich garden that you tend to well, hey, guess what happens? The weed management sort of starts taking care of itself.
I mean, that makes sense. Like, I love the thought of that. And plus, when you're putting all your energy into like the negative and not putting your
Mhm.
energy into the positive, like, then it's just continues to be like this swirl of negative energy. And I
Yes.
genuinely felt that, like, on the days where I was just pulling the weeds or doing whatever to survive, like, it's a day that
Mhm.
I don't go home energized and feeling great. So give me some practical, like, what does that look like? Like, do you go into hospitals as, the company? What does Flourish do for this profession?
Yeah, so I mean, we offer a variety of services around these kinds of things. Everything that we do is evidence based. It's all science backed. But the two primary things that we're really focusing on now are it's really around culture. We feel like culture is sort of the stew in which things, are cooked.
Yeah,
And if they're cooked really well, then you make a delicious stew. And if they're not cooked well, or you're adding the wrong ingredients, or there's too much heat or not enough heat, then I mean, we all know the results of that. That's how we think of culture. So we want to focus very heavily on that. So one thing that we do is we do a cultural analysis and blueprinting. We have one of the, I think, in the industry, one of the only evidence-based approaches to actually measuring and quantifying organizational culture. And so we do this extensive assessment. It measures the full bore measurement hits the culture at kind of looks at the culture through two lenses in four different ways. What is our espoused culture? What do we think we are? What do we say we are? Who are we trying to be? And then what is our enacted culture? How is it actually showing up day to day? Because that's where the impact is and that's where the results come from. We can actually measure and quantify that for organizations. The great thing is that once we do that, once you have a picture of that, once you've got your culture blood work, you very quickly identify the things that are within a healthy range and the things that are out of whack. Now we can help you create a plan for getting everything back into the healthy range. Hey, you
awesome.
know what? Let's apply a little bit of fluid therapy here so that we can, counteract the high creatinine, like that kind of stuff, right? So that's what we're doing, but with culture. The second area that we do is just purely educational. So we have a thing called Flourish Academy. It's all evidence based education. There's some on demand stuff, there's some certificate programs. Um, One of them is based on my book, The Certificate in Applied Positive Veterinary Leadership. It's an 8-month cohort style program that literally teaches leaders the science of positive leadership and how to apply that in veterinary medicine. How do you, as a leader who has, you're kind of the cook in the kitchen, right? You're the one that has the hand on all the ingredients in your pantry and all the spices on your spice rack and all the stuff in your fridge. You get to decide what to add and when to add it. How do you make sure that you're adding things in the right mix that contribute to human thriving in the workplace? We want to teach people how to do that.
I love that. And then I'm assuming, since you're so steeped in scientific research, that you're going to circle back and find out how you've done as a company within the veterinary hospital. So, do you have methods to circle back and retest culture? Awesome.
Yes, yes. So prior to doing this work, I was the managing partner in a couple small animal hospitals. So I was in charge of, like, the practice operations and the practice finance and all that kind of stuff, right? So there's that business background there, and some of that I've let go of, but some of it I haven't quite been able to shake. And I think the business side and then the science side, I'm a big fan of, like, you can only manage what you measure.
Mm.
So we follow the same thing. We do pre and post assessments for almost everything that we do. Some of them are actual, like, validated psychometric tools. Some of them are um, evidence based, science informed tools, things of that nature. But yes, we do. We want to see what's the efficacy of the interventions that we've provided. But all of those measurements, again, that's all, like, we're not measuring burnout, we're not measuring psychological distress, we're measuring workplace satisfaction, we're measuring workplace well-being. We want to see, like, are these things actually improving? Is the good stuff happening more?
Which is one spoke of the wheel that we always talk about at Veterinary Compassion Partner. There's so many
Yep.
different spokes to the wheel. We have so many issues in the veterinary workplace that starts in lack of training in veterinary school. And so this is a really huge spoke, because I do believe that veterinary culture, because of all the other demands and lack of training,
Hmm.
is questionable, problematic, and even with, like, me, with the best intentions in a veterinary hospital filled with love. I loved everybody
Mhm.
who came in the door, even with this, culture is still very difficult to maintain.
Mhm.
So, my question to you is, do you have thoughts, do you have a goal or work to try to get this to people? I've got many other questions, but to get this to people earlier, like
Y
in vet.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was having a conversation. So just prior to this conversation, I was delivering a lecture for a cohort. We have a private cohort right now that we're doing 36 hospital owners and practice managers, 15 or 16 different practices. It's our certificate in positive veterinary leadership. This month's module is on positive communication and positive conflict management. And we were talking about some of the basic skills of positive communication and the kind of communication that cultivates and generates high quality relationships that allow you to have the social capital to actually manage conflict well. And then what are the tools to use to turn conflict from a 4-letter word, I'm putting that in air quotes, because
Yeah.
to an opportunity to actually strengthen a relationship and improve performance. We were having these conversations, and some of the tools to me, like at this point, 8 years of doing this work, they kind of feel like very simple and straightforward. And somebody actually said that. One of the veterinarians in the group, who she's been a practice owner for, I don't know, 25 or 30 years. She has a very large, very successful practice that she's really an excellent leader overall. She said to me, it sounds so simple, and yet I struggle with it all the time. No one's ever taught this to me before.
Mm.
Exactly. Like we don't teach these things. We teach technical skills really well.
Really
And
well.
yeah, and we learn those technical skills and we master them. I mean, I can really honestly tell you this. In my career, 25 plus years working in vet med, thousands of veterinarians that I've met, I can count on one hand, and it doesn't take all 5 digits, how many veterinarians I wouldn't trust with my own pet. Like, these are some of the most intellectually skilled, technically gifted human beings on the planet. Those technical skills, they're wonderful, they're essential. When do we teach people how to people? Ev-
Amen.
Everything that we do relates to, goes through, functions by human interaction.
Period.
Everything that we do is a result of human input. And we don't teach people how to people well.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, I would love
That's
to see that
so
happen.
brilliantly said. Like, we don't. One of my biggest fears and stressors in the veterinary hospital was knowing that I had this oncoming confrontation that I was gonna have to have. Like, it
Yeah.
was just so exhausting and so stressful.
Mhm.
And now looking back, of course, there are better ways to do this, better ways to have these conversations, and had I only known that before, then I think that we could have managed so much easier and removed a large part of the stress. And it is true, we're in vet school, we're just focusing on the animals, and we're not
Mhm.
at all focusing on the person to person interaction that we have to make with the client, with our
Yeah.
staff members, with our fellow veterinarians.
Yeah.
Um,
Aaron, if I can interject maybe just a little bit of hope for this conversation.
yes.
You're familiar with maybe the phrase name it to tame it. Brene Brown talks a lot about name it to tame it. Have you heard of this before?
No.
So there's some really compelling neuroscience research where they essentially they look at amygdala function in real time using an fMRI, right? And they induce, there's a variety of ways to do this, but they'll induce a strong emotional response, which you can see like immediate, like the amygdala lights up. There's huge action in the amygdala, and then what they show is you ask people to describe in their own words what they're feeling in that moment when you see this amygdala response. See what happens to us, sort of, I don't know, psychoneurologically, when we get in this heightened emotional state, when we have these like impending confrontations, like what you're talking about. we're at risk for what social scientists will sometimes refer to as amygdala hijack. The amygdala fires up and it kind of goes nuts and it sort of takes over, and then we get a reduced access to executive function, which is conflict management, interactions, these kinds of conversations, they all require executive function. And if we have reduced access to that, we're going to stumble through those things. It's going to be a lot harder. So what they show is that they put people in fMRI, they incite these like amygdala responses, and then they ask them to describe in their own words what they're feeling. And just the action of saying what they're feeling, you can see a measurable, almost instantaneous reduction in amygdala response. That's where the name it to tame it came from. It's like we know this. Like if we can just say, I'm feeling really worked up and a bit frustrated right now, that releases some of the emotional baggage and allows us to activate executive function. So we were talking about this, and the reason I'm bringing this up, we were talking about this in that session that I just told you about, and the exact veterinarian that I just told you about. Nobody, it sounds so simple. Nobody teaches us. Said her daughter is learning those skills in school. They're teaching them name it to tame it.
Oh, how
So there's yeah,
incredible.
yeah. So maybe, just maybe, the next generation or the generation after will actually start developing these skills way before vet school and we'll start peopling better.
That's so awesome. And you've just like literally gone right into a path of what I'm always so concerned about, which is the veterinary profession. We're all raised up to be very competitive, self-competitive, competitive with
Hmm.
other people, and that creates like
Yeah.
these walls around us and this inability to stop and say, "Hey, actually, I do feel this way." We're not a lot of us, a lot of us are, but a lot of us are just not in touch with our emotions.
Yeah.
So, not being in touch with our emotions, we can't even say, "I feel this," because we just
Hmm.
don't know. We've adopted it as our norm. And so
Hmm.
we're not able to say those things.
Hmm.
So, Josh, what are the groups of people that come to you? Are they mostly owners, managers? Who knocks on your door?
Yeah. So we've been able to build out a menu of services that really are accessible to everybody in the profession. My personal passion is those in leadership position. I really like to talk to folks that are influencing other folks and teach them how to use that influence for good. So a lot of the programs and stuff that we do on that end is, yeah, it's going to be attractive to leaders. Certainly, like the cultural assessment stuff, that's going to require somebody who's in a decision making
Absolutely.
role. To sign off on something like that, because it requires kind of the whole team or the whole organization to be involved. That said, we also have programs that are geared towards individuals. Andy on our team, Andy Davison, who's another positive change agent at Flourish, does all the same stuff I do, has very similar education. Andy is right now about halfway through an 8-month certificate in applied veterinary resilience program that she's teaching.
Oh,
Yeah, so it teaches personal psychological resilience skills to folks, and she's got people from all walks of the profession in her program. So we do offer things like that as well, individual programs.
that is so wonderful. Yeah, because I'm listening to you and I'm thinking like, I absolutely, as a veterinary owner, would have loved to have had you come into my practice and dissect us, right? Open us up and tell us like what the problems are. But also that's a little daunting, like because
Yeah,
you're working really hard and you're thinking like I'm doing the best I can, and to come in and kind of be exposed like that could be a little bit scary. So I want you to
for
to
sure.
tell anybody who's listening that it's totally safe and that the outcome is going to be way worth it.
It's very safe. It's interesting. I think I'm so hyper vigilant of the language now and how we talk. And I'm going to say something to you, and I hope you don't take it the wrong way. It's not meant to be pejorative or judgmental. So I apologize if it comes across this way. You said it can feel daunting for somebody to come in and identify all the problems in the culture.
Mhm.
That's not actually what we do. what we
Great.
do is we're looking to identify where are the gaps between where you are and where you aspire to be, and how do we help you actually achieve that aspiration. That's not a problems focused look at culture. That's a
Absolutely.
strength based approach to culture. We want to see, like, where are you already doing this really well, and where are the areas where you say you want to be this but you're not quite hitting the mark. How can we help you hit that mark? How can we help you actually create the culture you always intended to have for folks? Because the truth is, we can't be everywhere. We can't be everyone. We can't see everything. There's stuff you're missing, and we can help you see those things in a very safe and proactive way that I think leads to empowerment, not disillusionment.
Absolutely. And and that wasn't pejorative at all. That's exactly what should be said, and that's what should be heard. Most importantly, that's what should be heard. Is that it's not scary, that it's wonderful, and that it's not somebody coming in to tell you the things that you're doing wrong. It's to tell you the
No.
things that you're doing right and to help you move in that direction. So if there
Mhm.
are any hospital managers who are concerned about culture that are listening to the podcast, maybe they can bring this to the owners and suggest that you guys come in and train. So it sounds like you're doing such an incredibly wonderful job. I also
Thank
will
you.
say that I love so much the science-based part of this. Sometimes in Veterinary Compassion Project, we go off into the woolly woolly world of meditation and such, and it's really nice to counter that with science, and research, and we do that with your science and research, and we do that with heart math, and I think what you're doing is brave and amazing, and I know that you're
Thank
making
you.
a difference and that you're gonna keep making a difference. And so before we wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to say, about the company?
Um, no, I guess I can't really say. You know what? Actually, I'm going to brag a little bit because
Please
I'm so
do.
darn proud of her. I started this company in the semi officially at the end of 2017, and then officially incorporated early 2018. So I've been doing this for a little while now, 7.5 years. Andy joined our team 3 years ago, actually 3 years and 4 days ago, which is making me realize that I owe her a congratulations on your 3 years. Um, and this year accomplished something that I have yet to accomplish. I have spoken. I spoke at Western 7 years in a row, 8 years in a row, something like that. Andy was awarded Speaker of the Year in the Practice Management track at Western Veterinary Conference this year, which is
Ah,
so cool. So
yeah,
cool.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. Congratulations. The tide is turning now. We're really in I mean, I don't wanna sound like, "Oh my gosh," but we're in kinda dire straits here. I mean, like, there's a general lack of people in the profession, staying in the profession,
Mhm.
and so we do have to do something, and we have to act quickly to keep people in this profession. It's such an important part of the world.
Totally agree. A friend and colleague of mine, he's also a researcher and author. His name is Zach Mercurio. Zach just published a really amazing book that I encourage everybody to read. It's called The Power of Mattering. Zach refers to the sort of generalized experience in the world right now of a mattering deficit. And I think that that is an acute experience in veterinary medicine. People who don't feel like they matter will seek an environment in which they do. And if they don't feel that sense of personal worth and value, being noticed for who they are, being affirmed and celebrated for what they bring to the table in our profession, they're going to go somewhere else to find it. So it is our job to deliver on those human needs if we want to keep people in this profession.
It's our job to people the people.
Exactly. Just be a good human. Like, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much. And it's fun having these podcast interviews because I'm always constantly going back to, my 20 years in practice as a business owner and thinking about it and fondly and thinking about, where I could have made
Mhm.
a difference and maybe where I could have not hit that wall of compassion fatigue and burnout. And I think your role is massive in it. And
Thank
I
you.
interviewed not too long ago my financial advisor because that's the other
Mm.
huge piece on that is the money part of it. But the
Mhm.
culture, I can't say enough about it. And so thank you so much for doing what you're doing. And potentially we'll have you back to talk more on our podcast. I want to thank you so much. And thank you again to our listeners. And I hope you have a great day, Josh.
Thanks. You too. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you so much.